Government of the Northwest Territories press conference on Budget 2025. My name is Clea Desjardins. I'm your host today. Just a few housekeeping rules before we get started. Please keep your microphones on mute until you are called on to ask a question. Please use the raise hand function to ask a question, and I'll call on you. We will start the questions in English, and then après ça, on va faire les questions en français. So Francophone media, please stay on to the end to ask your questions in French. Minister Wozniak will respond. Each media organization will have one question and one follow-up, and we'll start with an opening statement from Premier Simpson. So unless there are any questions at this point, I will throw it over to the Premier.
Thank you very much. Thank you everyone for joining us. We've been spending the past couple hours going over the 493-page budget, seeing what's in there for the Northwest Territories. And as always the case with these budgets, we'll see a few items that really do highlight the territory, but there's a lot of funding that is in programs that have been announced here, and we really still need to dig into those programs, understand what they mean, because the budget is pretty light on details. But there are a number of highlights for us. $90 million in new funding to increase Canada's military presence in the north. There's a $1 billion Arctic Infrastructure Fund, which is something that we have been asking for a number of years. There's a commitment to review northern health infrastructure and systems in the territory, which is, I can trace that budget item back to a discussion the Minister Wozniak and I had in Ottawa. So I do feel that the federal government has been responsive. We still have a lot to learn, but I think there's a lot of stuff in here that is going to help us out.
Great, thank you, Premier. There's a few members of the media who just joined us as you were speaking, so I'll just reiterate. We'll start with questions in English before moving to questions in French. Please use your raise hand function to ask a question, and I will call on you. So I will start with Cabin Radio. Ollie, over to you.
Yeah, thank you very much, and thanks for doing this as well. A question to both the Premier and to the Finance Minister as well. Recognizing from the Premier's opening statement that I think there's a reasonable amount of enthusiasm for this budget. What was missing from this budget, from your perspective, from an initial reading of it?
Well, we'd always like a lot more in every budget, and more specific projects. We'd love to see a line item for the Mackenzie Valley Highway in here, but the fact is that there are items in here that are going to help us advance our priority areas. So the infrastructure fund is one of those. There is money for public safety, specifically for aircraft. And so that should help us during a difficult fire season. The critical minerals tax credit has been expanded to include additional critical minerals, ones we have here in the territory, and we've been asking for that as well. But we don't have our north of 60 mineral exploration tax credit that we were hoping for. So, we didn't get everything we wanted, obviously, and we never do, but we do see items in here that are, either partial fulfillments of those requests or something different that is still going to help us out. And I'm sure Minister Wozniak has something to add to this as well.
Thanks, Premier. Thanks, Ollie. Not a lot to add. I mean, I suppose, Premier mentioned some of the specific items that we could say might have been missing, although again, that comes from a place of feeling like at least we have some very specific good things that are included. I suppose there's, I have some awareness here that there are some interesting areas that are within the announcements right now, but it's a bit of a remains to be seen, I guess would be my point, and examples of that being mentioning the Inuit Child First and Jordan's Principle funding, but until we kind of go back and maybe parse out exactly whether or to what degree the policies may have changed and the accessibility of those funds, it's sort of I'll hold out saying whether it's good or bad. Some of the Build Canada Strong money that's sitting over in HIC, Housing Infrastructure Canada, again, there's some interesting availability there. We've been asking for some flexibility in how the money can be used to enable housing infrastructure, such as water, sewage, education, healthcare, because that helps communities grow and neighborhoods grow. So, it says right now to be cost matched. I'll be interested to see what that means for the territories. We don't typically do a cost match. And also whether or not we're going to be competing directly with all provinces to maybe access some of those funds. So again, I'm still hopeful that these will be good news announcements for us and that we'll get to play a role in spending this money. But those are areas that I think maybe a little bit more remains to be seen. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you for that. Just to quickly follow up, have you had, this could be either for the Premier or the Finance Minister, have you had any signals from the federal government about what the immigration measures contained in this budget would mean for the NWT? How do you interpret those?
So I don't have any information on that. I looked at the immigration section there. I didn't see any specifics for the territory. So that's one of those items where we still have to get more information out of the federal government, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I had a quick read through and there's definitely some changes. I mean, there's some changes that look like they may be in short term and then not necessarily carrying on in terms of numbers and speeding up current processes for folks who may be currently waiting as refugees or persons in need of protection, speeding up processes right now for folks who are moving to permanent residency, what that does to our own specific numbers. Yeah, I think that'll remain to be seen. But, you know, again, hopefully it is good news towards folks who are here and who are looking to find some stability. So again, you know, I'm going to remain optimistic for now.
All right, I'll move on to James from CKLB.
Oh, hi, good afternoon, Premier and Minister. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes, perfectly. In the budget, what specifically should Indigenous communities be looking for in this budget? What specifically, I know you just mentioned in passing Jordan's Principle, but I guess I'm just trying to narrow things down to what benefits this budget will have for Indigenous communities in the Northwest Territories.
Well, I can start with that. And one of the first ones I'll point to is the commitment to improve access to healthcare in the Arctic and the North. And so I know the federal government is aware, we've had conversations with them about the amount of travel that someone has to do to access basic services, whether that's traveling from Sax Harbor to Yellowknife to then to Edmonton, or even just, you know, from Hay River to Yellowknife. It still takes time and it's still difficult for people with serious issues. And so the federal government has committed to undertake a comprehensive assessment of healthcare and healthcare infrastructure needs in the North, with the goal of identifying ways to increase access. And the reason they're interested in that is because of medical travel. They are responsible for the cost of medical travel in the territory for Indigenous people through the non-insured health benefits, as well as their own employees. And they've come to finally recognize that medical travel is expensive, and it's going to be cheaper for them to bring services closer to home into communities than it is to send thousands and tens of thousands of people across the country year after year. And so I think that's one where in the coming years, this one is actually going to pay dividends and people will see the impact in their community. So that's one. Another one I'll point out is increased funding to support the regulatory processes in the territory, including supporting Indigenous people's ability to engage in consultation processes, understand in these infrastructure or resource development projects that are perhaps happening on their traditional land, and helping them figure out ways to benefit the community. So there's a couple that just are at the top of my mind, and Minister Wozniak might have more as well.
Thanks, Premier. Those would have probably been my top two. I guess I'll also just make note, while there's not a dollar announced with this, the Nutrition North Canada does get a specific mention as well. And they are noting in the budget here that Special Representative will be shortly releasing the review. So for it to get special mention and acknowledgement that they need to work, that the federal government need to work with Inuit and Northern Indigenous leaders in order to make sure they are better meeting needs, to me that signals that they're aware that there's going to need to be some changes that will hopefully bring about improvements in the program. Thank you.
And a follow-up, can we talk about Jordan's Principle, and after this budget is now released, what is the status of Jordan's Principle funding?
So I don't have an answer for that. I didn't see anything in the budget about Jordan's Principle, so that's one of those questions that we did not have answered by this budget, not yet at least.
Yeah, I mean, I would have said the numbers that are in there right now, until we can kind of go back and figure out how they're going to be applied in terms of policy. It was some of the changes that impacted our communities in the Northwest Territories and really across the North were as a result of the way they were changing the policy of how they were rolling out applications and approvals. So yeah, this is one where I'm glad that it's at least been acknowledged that some funding is going to be continuing in this regard, whether it's an increase, what the changes are, that was certainly not in the first pass that I've read here. So it's one that we're still gonna have to dig into. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks, James. Sydney with CBC, over to you now.
Oh, hi, thank you. Can you hear me okay?
Yep.
Yep.
Okay, great. Did you see any money for social programs in this budget that will directly impact, benefit or otherwise the Northwest Territories?
So I didn't see a lot of new money for social programs. I think that signals a shift from this government and from the previous government. But that being said, I did look at some of the areas, the departments that are very important to the North, departments like Cernak, and they had actually very limited reductions. So not additional social programs or money for social programs, but very minor reductions. So that was comforting, I guess, if you can call it that we didn't see massive cuts in those areas.
Thank you very much. I actually accidentally left the meeting while you were answering that question, but luckily we were recording here, so I'll go back and follow up on that. I guess my other question is just related. This is not related to social programs, but the Arctic Arctic Infrastructure Fund, $1 billion over 4 years for the whole North, that doesn't seem like very much, especially given the projects that you're hoping to fund, the Mackenzie Valley Highway, the Arctic Security Corridor, et cetera. Like, what do you make of that? Was that disappointing to you?
Minister Wozniak, would you like to take that?
Yeah, thanks for the question. I mean, I think I had the exact same reaction initially, which is, that it's not a lot, but this certainly in the time that I've been in government is the first time that the Arctic is getting its own specific carve out, that we're not competing, say, on the National Trade Corridors Fund or ISIP, Invest Canada programs, which have been past infrastructure programs. So to see a specific mention like this one, I think is positive. This also comes on the heels of having the Major Projects Office being established, and we're already working with major projects both on the Arctic Economic Security Corridor as well as with the Mackenzie Valley Highway. So my hope is that this is the kind of funding that can help really to unlock and to accelerate the development of the project. And that with the Major Projects Office, working with us and alongside of us, we'll be able to establish what kind of funding profile we need, and that this is part of that, but not necessarily the end or the whole story. So yeah, look, happy to have something specific like this, but yeah, some work to come still in the next coming years. And for the moment, it's what we need for today. We're not in a position to be spending $3 billion or $4 billion this fiscal year. So for this coming fiscal year, this is more than plenty. Thanks.
And I'll point out as well that the budget does reference the Arctic Economic Corridor. And it mentions that it's a major project, but just requires further development, and then has a description of it. So I think that the fact that it's spoken of in there shows the fact that they are listening. And my hope is that we can advance the Mackenzie Valley Highway project to the point that in a future budget in a year or two, we would actually see a line item that says Mackenzie Valley Highway with a figure next to it, and not just a broad pot of money.
Great, thanks, Sydney. Lisa with True North, over to you.
Oh, sorry, thank you. So we're we're north now, actually, but so I wanted to ask with towards health and wellness, what do you see there for more remote communities, including like addictions and wellness programs that can benefit these communities that are smaller and in more remote areas?
Yeah, and so I didn't see anything directly related to that. And again, we've been going over this 500-page document just for about an hour and a half, so I think there's a lot more to parse out. But I'll mention again the commitment to do a review of health infrastructure in the territory. The budget points out that the territorial government, the GNWT, is spending a lot of money on medical travel. And if we can take that money, if the feds can make some changes that reduce those costs to us, we can take that money and then put it towards those types of programs. So I think that's where the benefit's going to be.
And I know there was mention of research, like a lot of investment in research. How do you see that translating in the NWT?
Yeah, there's the the Bureau of Research, Engineering, and Advanced Leadership and Innovation in Science. So Borealis is the name of it. It's a mouthful. But I think there's an opportunity. So the creation of this new entity within the Department of National Defense, there's an opportunity for the North here. We need to do more research in the North. Canada needs to do more research in the North. And now with this funding, they're going to have the ability to set up, research centers. And I think that we've already been pitching them on the North. The minister and I met with Minister McGuinty, and we highlighted this initiative and the fact that we have already a pretty vibrant research community in places like Inuvik and Fort Smith, and opportune places to set up shop. So I'm hopeful that things like Arctic research, cold weather testing, all those types of things are opportunities that we're going to see come to fruition in the coming years.
Thank you.
Okay, English media, any final questions before we switch into French? Seeing no further hands, allons-y en français. Alors, Cristiano, c'est à vous.
Bonjour, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes. Bonjour. Alors, j'ai deux questions pour Madame la ministre Caroline Wozniak. Donc, si vous pouvez répondre en français, s'il vous plaît, ce serait très apprécié. La première question, c'est êtes-vous satisfaite du budget fédéral annoncé aujourd'hui et pourquoi?
Merci pour la question. Oui, je dirais que je suis satisfait. Enfin, qu'il y a deux choses certainement. Donc, on a demandé de la gouvernement fédéral et l'une des autres, c'est il y en a trois en vérité. Et une c'est d'avoir mentionné Inuit Child First et Jordan's Principle. On ne sache pas encore exactement comment ça va se passer si ça va encore agrandir leur fonds ou non. Mais de mon avis, le fait que c'est mentionné ici et la façon dont c'est mentionné, je dirais que c'est pas probable qu'il va y avoir une amélioration de ce projet pour nous autres ici. Deuxième, c'est le fait qu'on en a finalement une fonds spécifique pour l'infrastructure dans l'Arctique pour $1 milliard. Ça se semble être un grand numéro, mais c'est pas vraiment un grand numéro pour les fonds d'infrastructure dont nous avons besoin. Mais c'est une bonne place, donc on peut pas commencer. Et la troisième chose, c'est vraiment quelque chose dont moi et la première ministre, dont nous autres avons parlé avec le ministre Champagne quand on était à Ottawa, et c'est le fait que notre système de santé fait qu'on doit faire ça doit se passer qu'on ne peut pas avoir notre service dans les communautés ici. Alors, et ça, c'est quelque chose dont avoir l'assistance du gouvernement fédéral à vraiment regarder à ce problème-là d'une façon très concrète, je pense que ça pourrait avoir des grands impacts pour nous autres aussi sur nos fonds.
Merci beaucoup. J'ai juste une deuxième question. Vous avez parlé de budget qui viendra pour des projets d'infrastructure. Je demande quel projet d'infrastructure voudriez-vous voir priorisé en premier?
Il y a vraiment, on en a besoin de tous les projets d'infrastructure ici dans le territoire. On se manque si beaucoup d'infrastructures. Alors, c'est pas un fait de prioriser une avant l'autre, mais en effet, la réalité, c'est qu'on en a les projets qui ont à des places différentes les uns les autres. Alors, par exemple, Mackenzie Valley Highway, c'est déjà, un demi de la projet, c'est déjà dans un assessment environnemental. Alors, cet aspect de la projet va être préparé à commencer à se passer à construction en premier. Après ça, on en a le Arctic Economic Security Corridor. Ce projet-là, ça commence à se remettre à un plan assez concret, mais c'est encore peut-être quelques pas en arrière de la première phase de Mackenzie Valley Highway. Et puis, en troisième, c'est la deuxième partie de la Mackenzie Valley Highway qui va nous porter jusqu'à la Forward Operating Base à Inuvik. Alors, on voit que, de mon avis, on peut avoir tous ces projets ici. Ce n'est pas nécessaire de les construire à la même temps et c'est vraiment pas peut-être même possible de le faire à la même temps, mais on peut prioriser les projets d'une façon qu'on va toujours être en train d'avancer notre infrastructure si on le fait dans une façon organisée. Merci.
Merci beaucoup.
Et merci à vous, Christian. Autre question en français.
Oui, bonjour, est-ce que vous m'entendez bien?
Oui, allez-y, Anaïs.
Parfait. Donc, Anaïs El-Boujtani pour Radio-Canada. La question s'adresse évidemment à Madame Wawzonek. Je me demandais si vous pouviez réagir à la place qu'occupent les minéraux critiques dans le budget fédéral.
Oui, merci. Je suis d'une partie très contente de voir qu'on va avoir une attention là à des projets pour les minéraux critiques. On a surtout l'opportunité ici. On a plusieurs projets qui sont assez avancés, peut-être pas même à la pointe de construction d'eux-mêmes, mais ils sont assez avancés. Alors pour ça, on voit qu'il y a des fonds qui vont s'aider à faire des investissements stratégiques. De mon ami David, c'est une opportunité pour nous autres de connecter les projets qui sont ici à ces fonds-là et de se demander qu'est-ce que ça va faire pour être que si on n'attend pas 4 ans, 5 ans pour avoir nos projets en production. Qu'est-ce qu'on peut faire peut-être avancer ça? Je sais que ça, c'est une de les priorités pour la ministre de InterCan fédérale. Je sais que lui, il veut voir des projets qui s'avancent de plus vite. Alors, si ça, c'est une raison qu'on en a ces fonds ici, ben on aimerait voir que ces fonds viennent à la territoire des Nord-Ouest pour avancer notre projet aussi. On voit aussi quelque chose que nous autres, on a demandé, ça fait déjà quelques années, c'est d'avoir une plus grande éligibilité pour les minéraux qui vont être capables de se rendre à utiliser le Critical Mineral Exploration Tax Credit. Alors, le credit, c'était pas exactement une copycat de tous les minéraux qui se trouvent sur la liste de Canada. Et il y en a quelques-uns là qui sont ici en les territoires des Nord-Est qui n'étaient pas sur cette liste. Alors, on voit qu'on a ajouté bismuth, on a ajouté tungsten. Ça, ce sont deux minéraux qui sont assez importants. On a deux projets très avancés ici. Alors, pour moi, ça, c'est une bonne chose de voir là.
Et ma deuxième et dernière question, le climat. On sait que le nord canadien se réchauffe beaucoup plus rapidement que le reste du Canada. Et le budget fédéral semble un peu plus timide peut-être que d'autres sur la question climatique, mais je voulais vous entendre avoir votre avis et particulièrement comment ça peut avoir un impact pour les territoires du Nord-Ouest.
Oui, merci. C'est certainement, je suis d'avis, peut-être moins ici en comparaison à des budgets fédéraux durant les quelques années dernières, mais quand même, il y en a encore l'opportunité d'avoir d'aide en tant que wildfires et une assistance en tant que les wildfires. On verra comment ça va se passer pour tous les territoires et provinces d'avoir accès à l'investissement qui est ici dans le budget. Hors de ça, il y en a je trouve, des opportunités pour encore d'autres emplois et training, education. Alors, encore pour nous autres ici, est-ce que ça serait quelque chose dont on va être capable de prendre l'avantage? On verra. Alors, oui, je dirais que ça, c'est probablement un des top, thèmes. Donc, on voit un peu moins. Alors, il y en a des fois dans les budgets fédéraux qu'il y a des grands annoncements, mais on ne sache peut-être pas exactement quand ça va se passer. Alors, peut-être ça vient à nous autres ici maintenant, à leur parler et dire comment ça se fait qu'on peut accomplir quelques-uns des choses qui sont mentionnées ici. Alors, ça, c'est probablement un des thèmes là que je dirais que je me demande un peu comment ça va se passer.
Super, merci Agnès. Autre question en français? Okay, no more questions in French. Anyone else? I know Bruce with APTN, you haven't had the chance to ask a question yet. Do you have anything that hasn't been covered that you'd like to ask before we wrap?
I think everything's been covered for myself, so thank you.
Okay, great. Then I'll ask Premier Simpson to just give some closing thoughts here before we finish up.
Sure. So thank you all for joining us. The budget was just released a few hours ago, so lots of work to do to figure out exactly what's in here. But it's clear there's a focus on the economy, on building out Canada, on investing in the military. and investing in critical mineral projects. So I think there's a lot in here for the territory, and now it's our job to go back, figure out what exactly is in here, and how we move forward, and whether we need to change our approach or double down in certain areas where we've seen success. So a lot of work to be done, but I feel like we're at a good starting point. And if this is the first federal budget we've had since our government has come into power, so it's an exciting day for us all here. So thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you everyone for joining us. Thank you so much for your interest in our commentary on the budget. If you have any follow-up questions, please don't hesitate to be in touch with Cabinet Communications through the press secretary contact that you have on the media advisory that you received about this today. That concludes our press conference. Thanks again for joining us. Take care.